Hey everybody, my name is Jim Farmer. I'm the festival director of Out on Film, Atlanta's LGBTQ Film Festival, as well as an arts reporter for Georgia Voice. Strain Releasing is restoring several of their popular LGBTQ titles on June 1st and making them available for streaming. One of those films is StraightJacket, starring Emmy Award winner Carrie Preston. I'm so happy to welcome Carrie Preston today. Thank you so much for joining us, Carrie.
It's good to be here. It's good to talk about that movie that I haven't thought about in a long time.
I love StraightJacket. I remember you, I'm not sure if you remember this, but you actually came down to the Atlanta screening of StraightJacket.
Of course, I remember that.
It
It
was,
was so fun.
I think it was 4 degrees outside. It was a cold
That's
night.
right. It was. It was. It was cold for a Georgia day.
It was
Yeah, I remember that now. But yeah, it was fun to share that, because I grew up in
exactly.
Georgia. So, and I have many fond memories of Atlanta and Georgia Shakespeare Festival and,
Like,
just growing up in Macon. And so I always love having the opportunity to come down and share my work with my fellow Georgia peaches.
yeah, great. Carrie, so if I remember correctly, you were actually in, I talked to Richard Day last week and Jack Plotney. You were actually in the play, StraightJacket.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was in the play. We did it. We did it. Richard Day, he had never really done much theater, and
Okay.
he hadn't done New York theater. So he was trusting the producers, and they put him in a theater on the Upper East Side that used to be that was formerly for many, many years Yiddish rep. Okay. So not really the place that you would think of to put, a play that's geared towards gay audiences.
Sure.
Um, a lot of people came to the show thinking they were going to see something in Yiddish. So they were very surprised when the lights came up and there were a couple of shirtless guys in bed. But we had such a good time with it. And it's such a crackling good script. It's so funny. I mean, Richard's such a great writer and so, it's just so bright and pithy. And it really did hit a nerve, and so when a couple of years later he said, I want to make a movie of it, what, will you come and join us? I was like, are you kidding me? That sounds incredible. So then we really got to, do it justice with
Sure.
all of the beautiful sets and costumes and stuff. And he was doing it on a very low budget, but those 50s movies were like that. They were very theatrical. Our first day of shooting, we did like, I don't know, a 10, 12-page scene in one take.
Wow.
That was our first day of shooting.
Okay.
We just dove right in and the cameras were moving around and, we had to do it several times
Exactly.
to get it right. But yeah, it really, was able to kind of echo the theatricality that we had captured on stage.
Sure. Was the role of Sally beefed up a lot for the film?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it just kind of all opened up a little
Sure.
bit, had more breath to it. There was a role that had been in the play and then it was removed from the play and then it got put back in for the movie. Richard comes from the world of sitcoms where, an entire script will change in a day. And even on the night that you're shooting the sitcom, it will change. So that didn't even faze him at all. He was always changing things around, throwing us new jokes, making things better, tweaking things, adding characters, removing them, doing all that stuff. It was pretty thrilling to do that. And he had been working on this show called Good Morning Miami at the time that starred Matt Lesher.
Mhm.
And so that was when, and I came on to do a guest spot on Good Morning Miami. And that was when he was like, he saw us together and he thought, oh, that would be good, to see Matt play the role of Guy Stone and Carrie reprise the role that she did on stage. So that's, I think, according to him, how he got the idea to do it as a
Okay.
movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when I think about StraightJacket, I remember how funny it was, but I also remember this really amazing ensemble cast.
Yeah, yeah, it was a great cast. The role that I was just talking about that was on stage that he took away from and then put it back in the movie was the one that my husband played,
Yeah.
Michael Emerson. Yeah, that was originally in the theater script, but then for whatever reason that he dropped it, and then he brought it back for Michael. So that was cool.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, and I knew Jack Plotnick for years. We kind of just go way back from the New York theater scene, and we have so many mutual friends. And so it was really fun to, work with him. And I had never met Veronica Cartwright before, but
Veronica Cartwright.
yeah, so that was great. Yeah, so it was a great experience. And it was just a real thrill to be able to, usually when you do a movie, you don't have any time to rehearse. You just show up and do it, but I had a whole run of
Sure.
playing this character. So that was, it made it feel very comfortable.
What was it like working with Michael in the film?
Oh, it was great. I love working with my husband. I mean, he's brilliant. He's a brilliant actor. And he was thrilled, to have the role, because at the time he was playing kind of, well, really scary character. So it was fun for him to, play something that where he could get some laughs and stuff. Because his whole beginning of his theatrical career was doing comedies.
Sure.
He was always doing, Oscar Wilde and, The Importance in Being Earnest, or, these wild, very, farcical restoration comedy, kind of classical comedy plays. And so it was fun for him to, get to do a role like that on film.
When I was talking to Richard and Jack last week, we were talking about the fact that for those of you who have not seen StraightJacket, and we'll see it eventually very soon, StraightJacket is about a movie star who is tied as being gay, is asked to enter a relationship with his secretary, and it's about what follows after that. Rock Hudson, we talked about Rock Hudson a lot because that happened a lot in the Rock Hudson era. But surprisingly, it seems very timely right now because that still happens so much today.
Yeah, I know. It's still, even now, people are still, scared to come out, or people don't want their movie stars to be a certain thing. But I think it's changed quite a lot. I mean, I think in the last, several years, we're having quite an incredible revolution for the LGBTQ plus community, and I think that's long overdue, and I'm all for it. But nonetheless, this movie does, harken back to that time when it wasn't even an option.
Sure.
For someone like Rock Hudson.
Sure. Carrie, so much of your work has dealt with LGBTQ issues. I read an interview with you in which you said that you felt like you were part of the community as an ally. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I grew up in the South, and then I went to college. I definitely had, my own experiences with being bi, and then I ended up meeting, this man that I married. And so I still feel like I'm, part of the community, even though I'm in a relationship with a man. And so I've always felt like, that I'm an ally, but I'm also a part of it. It's like an interesting place to be, this kind of in between place. Like, what are you when you've been married with the same person for 27 years, but you had, a past as a part of that community? Like, where do you fit? Well, you just are part of it. I feel like, and it's become more and more, acceptable that everybody has a different story, Glennon Doyle, for example, or, people who are, we're definitely standing on the backs of a lot of people that have gone through a lot to allow us to do things like say I'm part of the community, even though I'm married to a man, and have that, be a woman and saying I'm married to a man, and even though I'm still part of that community, to be able to be accepted for that, to be embraced by the community and not sort of judged in saying, well, you're not really, because you haven't suffered the way we have. I feel honored, to say that.
If I'm correct, your directorial debut was 29th and Gay?
Yeah, that was. long time ago, 2000, and I want to say 4 that came out, 2004.
And
Yeah.
not long after that, you did Ready Okay, which I adore Ready Okay. I just adore that film.
It's such a sweet film. And, you know, James Vasquez and Mark Holmes, my producing partners,
Mm.
on those films, they, we always say we wanted to make gay films you can take your mother to.
Mhm.
Films that are that are kind of the whole family oriented in a way, that are about the queer experience in a way that is not necessarily sexual. And so, to make a movie about a little boy who, he wants to be a cheerleader, he wants to wear a dress, and he's 11. He doesn't really know anything about his sexuality yet. And James wrote this beautiful script, and I think, and we found this beautiful young actor, and we were able to just kind of capture that, I think, that moment in so many young people's lives when they're, in just a couple of years, they're gonna blossom into who they are, but they're still,
Exactly.
putty. Yeah. But I'm really proud of those films. The first film, like 29th and Gay, I mean, we didn't know what we were doing. We just knew we had a story we wanted to tell. We got some cameras.
Yeah.
We made a lot of mistakes, but we strung it together. And it was kind of a coming of age part 2, story about, it wasn't a coming out story. The guy was already out. He just, was kind of figuring out how to make it as an out person and find love, just a simple romantic comedy. And we found that, people were hungry for those kinds of stories. And so that's how we kind of started building on them.
Sure. Carrie, what's it been? I mean, you've worked a lot with Alan Ball. What's that experience been like?
He's incredible. I mean, I did this movie Towelhead with
Yeah.
him. That was the first thing I did with him. And he's not afraid to take on big topics,
Hmm.
big subjects. And that was certainly a big subject. And remember, we were working one day and just chatting, and I said, what are you doing next? And he said, well, I'm gonna do a new series for HBO. It's about vampires. And I was like, what? I mean, what? To go from 6 Feet Under, American Beauty, and all these things to a vampire show. And he was like, yeah, so, I have something in there that I think you would be right for. And I read the script, and I didn't know what he was talking about, because I just, at the time, I
Yeah.
certainly wasn't a redhead. I certainly, wasn't some like buxom redheaded, whatever. And so I just thought, all right. I said, well, I don't know what role they're talking about. And they said Arlene. And so I went and auditioned, and there went the next 7 years.
How did you find that character?
Oh man. I mean, I grew up with
Okay.
women like that. I mean, I felt like I sort of played her as like a Texan, not so much a Louisiana, like, because it was supposed to, it's in this fictitious town sort of on the Louisiana Texas border. And so I kind of went for that because it felt closer to, what I knew as growing up in Georgia. And then it just, you just take what's on the page, and you put it on the stage. And he was very collaborative, and he's a Georgia boy too. And so we had a shorthand there. And I think he was happy to have a couple of authentic Southerners in the project, because there were people from all over the world that were in that
Gotcha.
show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that show, really changed my
It
life.
I remember when that show, I mean, when that first show started, it was the rage. It's
Yeah.
what you did on Sunday nights. You had dinner and then you watched True Blood. I mean, and
Yeah.
everybody watched it, and everybody watched it
Yeah.
together, talked about it the next morning.
Yeah, exactly. It was that at that time when you would still do that, it wasn't like the streaming where everything is just sort of out there at all
Exactly.
times, and you don't have that kind of event of, people would have these epic screenings. They would have them screenings in bars. They would have these, bingo nights around True Blood. I mean, it was really cool to be a part of something that really captured the, the zeitgeist a little bit. And it's funny, during COVID, I don't know if they were pushing it more or whatever, but a new group of fans started happening. People who had never seen it, people who were like, oh, my mom watched it when I was a kid, but now I'm watching it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been fun,
Great. When you did your first episode of The Good Wife, did you foresee how that role would grow and just do so much for your career?
Wow, no. I mean, I knew when I read it that it was really special. I mean, it was one of those that just leapt off the page, and I thought, oh gosh, I really hope I don't screw this up, because it is delicious and they've trusted me with it, and I I I know what I want to do with it, and luckily they let me do what I wanted to do with it. That doesn't always happen. A lot of times, they micromanage you because, or they're scared or whatever. They have an idea in their mind that they need you to try to do for them. But luckily they let me kind of rise up to try to meet the material they had already written, and it ended up settling into a really extraordinarily rewarding place. But I did it at the end of the first season, and then I didn't hear anything from them for a whole season. So I was certain that I had messed it up. I was like, I just thought, oh God, I messed it up. They don't want to bring me back. Oh well. And I had this like period of mourning and the whole thing. And then out of nowhere in the third season, they were like, hey, will you come back and do like 3 or 4?
Yeah.
Yes. And then it kind of, snowballed from there. And then I just this past Saturday wrapped directing an episode of The Good Fight, which is the
Great.
spinoff of The Good Wife. So because I do a lot of directing, as you know, but I had only recently in the last couple of years gotten into episodic directing, which is a whole nother thing than just doing your independent features or whatever. It's definitely a bigger beast to try to slay, so to speak. But I had directed a couple of episodes of this show that I just finished acting in called Claws in New Orleans. Yeah. And then, from that, they gave me this opportunity on The Good Fight. So it was pretty great. I hadn't acted on that show since season 2. So this was season 5. So it was fun to be back. I know a lot of the crew. Everybody was, so welcoming, and it was just extraordinary to be able to direct in this world that I've sort of peripherally been involved with for 12 years.
Sure. Well, congratulations again on the Emmy for The Good Wife. And I remember, I think it was you won an Emmy, and then I think like the year after or 2 years later, Michael Emerson won an Emmy for Lost.
Well, he had won his first, actually. He had already gotten. He had 2 Emmys because he won. His first one was for The Practice.
Okay,
in the guest category, and then he was nominated, several times during Lost, and then he won one for Lost. So yeah, I was like, dang, I got to get me one of those. So like it's up to me. But so I do feel like a little bit better that that I was able to get one too at some point, because it's like you just there's no guarantee that anybody's ever going to get anything like that. So it was like a cherry on the top.
I have to ask you about a couple of the projects. That Evening Sun, Hal Holbrook.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
That was such an amazing movie.
Wasn't it? Scott Teems.
Yeah.
Scott Teems is such a beautiful filmmaker, and that was such a quiet film that I feel like should have won the Academy Award. You know what I mean? It was like so beautiful, and it was just under the radar, and Hal Holbrook, I mean, he gave the performance of a lifetime.
How was he not nominated? I mean,
that's what I'm saying. It just, they worked really hard, but it's how it is with indie films. It's just, if you don't have like the big studio or the big money or the big splash or something behind it, then it's really hard to get. It's like Horton Hears a Who. You just have to like jump up and down and scream, and sometimes it just doesn't just doesn't push through for whatever reason, although it is highly regarded and respected, that movie. It's not like it didn't, do well in its world, but yeah, that's one of those ones that I was really proud to be a part of, and to be able to stand there and watch a master like Hal Holbrook work was,
Exactly.
one of those you can count on your hands so many times you get that experience.
One of our favorite films from Out on Film is Who's Afraid of Vagina Wolf? And there and Anna Margarita down there, and they were so amazing. But that is such a funny movie.
Anna's so funny. She is such a creature. She is just delightful, and I had met her through friends,
Yeah.
and she just like, she was like, hey, will you come do this thing with us on the weekends, basically? And, don't tell anybody you're doing it. And then afterwards we'll do the deal and all this stuff. And I was like, yes, absolutely. Because you are a bolt of lightning that I just want to be around, And it was just like hanging out with friends. And the whole time we were shooting, I was like, is this gonna cut into anything? I wonder. Who cares? And then it did. It turned into this like delightful little thing. Like, she's definitely got her own point of view, and no one else has a voice like hers.
Exactly. She's amazing.
Yeah.
A couple others I have to ask you about. My Best Friend's Wedding.
That was my first movie.
Wow.
I mean, I had done some smaller, straight to video kind of movie things. But that was, a big deal. And that was back in the 90s when romantic comedies were still, the money makers, the big epic kinds of things that studios were putting out. Julia Roberts was, huge star, also Georgia Girl, so that, I mean, it was just one of those things that you don't experience anymore, or at least I don't in movies, that scale, go. I went to Chicago and just, was there for 2.5 months, living in this great place and doing, just the sets and the costumes and everything was just grand, and then it was, like a big Hollywood hit, where little girls, people who were little girls when that came out, still talk about it to me sometimes. Oh my God, when I was a little girl, that was like my favorite movie. And, these are grown women now, it's so funny. It's so funny. But PJ Hogan was, talk about taking just a really good, solid romantic comedy and turning it into something iconic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just the role of a director, like that whole scene where we're singing in the we're all singing in the restaurant and stuff. That was all him, that was all him. He just added all that in. He got all these Burt Bacharach songs and, just turned it into this, true kind of screwball comedy of yore, with a modern twist.
Sure.
Yeah.
The 4th and final season of Claws. Does that have an air date yet?
Well, we think it's later in the year. Everything got so messed up with COVID. Yeah. We were halfway. We were 5 episodes into our final season of shooting, 5 of 10, and we all had to shut down. And so when we went back, we finished it up. But then by that time, the network is all changing, everything's shifting, things are moving to streaming. They've got the Olympics for this summer, all this. We're usually a summer show. The Olympics for this summer, and all that stuff. So we don't have an air date yet. I think they're just wanting to make sure that they put it out at a time when people are needing something to watch.
Exactly. What's that experience been like?
Incredible. Yeah, I love New Orleans. We shot in New Orleans, and even though it was set in Florida, that's where we shot. And I'd visited there before, but to be able to live there for the better part of 4 years, at least half a year for 4 years, I really, really fell in love with that place. Felt very comfortable there. And I got to be really close with a lot of the cast. And, when you're on location, you're each other's family. You know what I mean? Like you're just kind of a little merry band. So we have a text thread going every day, we're constantly talking about stuff and, sharing and supporting each other. And the role, I mean, I got to play this character that is a con artist who steals people's, yeah, she steals people's identities, but she steals their personalities too. So I got to like play, it was like playing 10 different role characters in one character. I mean, it's like an actor's dream, the character actor's dream. So I was really sad when that ended. I could have done that for another couple of seasons. Um, yeah, so I was really bummed when that one finished. Yeah, it has a real soft spot for me.
The last year has been extremely hard, but I mean, do you feel like we're at a point now where the industry is back to normal, almost back to normal in terms of filming and rolling again?
Yeah, it's definitely getting there. I mean, the protocols have been amazing that
Mhm.
they put in place, that they slaved over. All the unions worked together. It is really impressive what
Mhm.
they were able to do, and to get us all back and working. And so I was very grateful for that. Like Claus was one of the first shows to get back up and running.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was pretty great, but we also we had, we had to shut down for a minute, but no one ended up getting sick. But you have to just like take the precautions, and if there's, a positive case, you have to, even if it's a false positive, they just had to, you know, err on the side of safety and caution. But we were able to get it done, and it's a little bit more challenging, but everybody there, was grateful, to be back at work after what we'd all been through. Um, so there was a newfound kind of respect and joy for the work, because it had been taken away.
Sure, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you have any other projects lined up right now?
No, I'm just gonna do post on this episode that I directed of The Good Fight. So I'll do that in the next couple weeks. And then I'm not sure what's next. It's kind of nice to take a little break.
Exactly.
Yeah, have a little summer break a little bit, and then we'll see. Yeah, I love doing TV, so I hope that I can get another series, and then, also just keep seeing if I can get some more directing work. It's getting a little bit better. There's more incentives for studios and networks to hire women, and that certainly wasn't the case when I first started directing my own projects. In 2004, it was still almost all men. So it's nice to be in a world now where, diversity and female forward hiring is happening more. So I hope to take advantage of that.
Exactly. Great.
Yeah.
StraightJacket is the restored version of StraightJacket is one of the Strand titles that will be available on June 1st for streaming. Carrie, I can't begin to tell you how much fun this has been. Thank you so much for your career. Thank you so much for being such an ally in the LGBT community. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today.
You too. It's always good to see you, and good luck with the festival and getting things back up and running again.
Good luck with everything to you too. Thanks so
Thanks.
much. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye, Carrie.